There's an old tall tale called The Split Dog. I've heard it all my life, and I never paid much attention to it until I started twisting balloons, and then I saw that the balloon would make a perfect prop for this story. Yeah, now, let me get you to sing along with me for just a second. Gonna start off with a little song called I Had a Dog and His Name Was Blue. It goes like this. I had a dog and his name was Blue. I had a dog and his name was Blue. I had a dog and his name was Blue. I bet you $5 he's a good dog too. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Try that with me. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Well, I shouldered my gun and I tooted my horn. Gonna catch a possum in the new ground corn. Old Blue barked and I went to see. He'd cornered a possum in a cinnamon tree. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Here, Blue, you good dog, you.
Well, now, old Daniel Boone had a dog named Blue, and he was a good sniffer. He could stick his nose down on the ground here in Cary, and he could smell a raccoon over in Asheville. Well, one day, they were running across a field of tall grass, and old Blue, he was leaping high so he could see where he was going. And one time, he leapt up way up high into the air, and when he came down, there was an old sawmill blade hidden there in the grass. He came down right on that sawmill blade, cut him right in two.
Front end split off from the back end just like that. But Daniel Boone was always prepared. He had a little baggie in his pocket with super glue in it. He took some out, he slapped some on the front end, he slapped some on the back end, and then he held them together. Count with me to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blue was all back together again. He barely missed a heartbeat. He blinked his eyes a couple of times. Whoop, whoop. He barked. He was ready to go. Well, he was almost ready to go. You see, there was one small mistake that Daniel made. He was in such a hurry to get them back together again that, well, you tell me if you know what he did that kind of caused the problem. He put him to, what did he do? He put his tail on upside down. Oh my God, you're thinking that poor hunting dog, aren't you? That's what you're thinking, aren't you? Go ahead and admit it. You're thinking that dog ain't gonna hunt no more possum, aren't you? Say that. That dog ain't gonna hunt no more possum.
Well, you're wrong. Because you see, old Blue, he was a clever dog and he was very, very persevering. He learned to run on his front legs. He just watched old Daniel and he copied him. He'd run alongside old Daniel, but he had one advantage. When his front legs got tired, why, he just flipped over and back legs. That's the story of it. The banjo came to this country from Africa. When black people came to this country, they brought a little banjo with them. There are still, in Africa, there's about 60 different instruments that resemble the banjo, that have a round head with a skin over it usually, and a neck with some strings on it. But now the banjo's used a lot by all kinds of people who like to play mountain music and bluegrass. Now here's an old mountain song, and it's real easy to sing. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Sing it again. Oh, I wish I was a mole in the ground. Oh, you sing great. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root that mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. Now, the thing about these old songs is a lot of them were made up by just ordinary people like you and me and your teachers and your mommy and poppy and your grandma and grandpa. So I thought it's always fun to see if we can make up a verse to this song. All you need is an animal and a place that that animal is. Maybe what it does. Who's got an idea for an animal? Okay? A lion. Ooh. How about, I wish there was a lion in the den. If I was a lion in the den, what would I do? What would I do if I was a lion in the den?
Hunt for food. I'll bring a zebra in.
I'd what?
I bring a zebra in.
Bring a zebra in. Well, the lion's got to eat, and that rhymes. He's got a good sense of rhyme. Let's do that one. I say go with that one. I wish I was a lion in the den. Oh, I wish I was a lion in the den. If I was a lion in the den, I'd bring a zebra in. And I wish I was a lion in the den. Let's try one more. Anybody else? Now, we all know about recycling, maybe, how you use things in new ways, okay? Well, in the old days, when you got these big old holes in your blue jeans, like he's got, and your mama said, no more wearing those blue jeans, she didn't just throw those blue jeans out. She took the blue jeans and she cut out squares and shapes out of the good part of the blue jeans. She did that with all the leftovers for the clothes, and then when she got a nice big pile, she'd say, it's time to make a patchwork quilt. And she'd sew those patches together and she'd make something new out of those old things. Now, here are the motions. I want you to put on a pair of glasses for your grandma, because you know our eyes get old. On my grandma's, and probably the first place you need a patch is right here, because you're sitting on it all the time. So for patch, I want you to kind of hit your bottom. Patchwork, and for quilt, I want you to pretend you've got a needle and you're sewing, okay? On the grandma's patchwork quilt, let me see it. Squares of corduroy and the silk, red and green and blue, and yellow too, on the grandma's patchwork quilt. Oh, in a wheel bound for the mountain, bound for the mountain, bound for the mountain, over the mountains, the hills and the mountains, away with the case away. Roll over, see him, roll over, catch him, roll over the mountains, the hills and the mountains, away with the chase away. Well, one time there was a little boy whose pa always went out hunting at night. He'd hear those hounds baying all night long, and well, he'd want to go too. But every time he asked his pa if he could go, his pa would say, no, you're too little and your legs are too short. You'd get left behind and we'd have to go back and get you. And wait till you're a little bit older. But that little boy, he begged and pleaded and begged and begged and pleaded and pleaded and begged and begged and pleaded until finally his father said, all right, you can go when you're 8 years old. Probably thought his little boy would forget all about it, but he didn't. He counted the days, one after another. He thought about that every single day until he was 8 years old. And on that morning, he stood before his father. He said, Pa, I'm 8 years old today. Happy birthday, said his father. No, he said, you said when I was 8 years old you would take me hunting with you. Well, I did, said his father. That's true. But you know, those hunting dogs are really fast and your legs are really short. If you get left behind, we're not going to come on back and get you. You'll have to find your own way home, out in the dark. Well, that's all right, said the little boy. He said, I'll bring along my horn, and if I get lost, why, I'll blow it. And old Blue, the lead hound dog, he'll come and get me. Oh, Blue, where are you? Try that with me if you like. Oh, Blue, where are you? Well, all right, said his father. I guess that's it. They shouldered up their guns and whistled up their dogs, and off they went. Out across the field, up the footbridge over Lick Creek. Met some other farmers and their dogs down in the holler, and off they went. That little boy, he was doing okay for a while. He was keeping up. But then those dogs, started to get that scent of that bear, and off they went, getting faster and faster. His legs were getting tired. His breath was getting out. And finally, he tripped over a log. He got up, and those dogs were way off in the distance. He couldn't hear them anymore. He looked around, and it was all dark. He wasn't scared. Pulled out his horn, and he blew for old Blue. Oh, Blue, where are you? Oh, Blue, where are you? And all he could hear was an old hoot owl. Hoo, hoo. Some mosquitoes. An old bullfrog. Took out that horn and blew it again. Oh, Blue, where are you? Oh, Blue, where are you? Way off in the distance, he thought he heard a little something. He said, I think that's them. It's getting louder. They're getting closer. Here they come. They're coming around the mountain. They're coming to get me. Here they come. Oh, away, we're bound for the mountain, down for the mountain, down for the mountain, over the mountains, the hills and the mountains, away with the chase away. Listen to the hound dog's heavy bass sounding right over the way. All night long till break of dawn, barely the chase goes on. It's over the mountains, the hills and the mountains, away with the chase away.
Now, who can tell me something that a possum does that helps it survive from its predators? It plays dead, that's right. And the reason it does that is that when a predator comes to eat it, if it thinks it's already dead, it thinks, oh, that's not fresh meat, that's not very good, it's been laying around for a while. I was out in the swamp, and I was trapped all the day. I come back into the camp, and I say to my wife, what you have fixed to eat? I am very hungry. She say, not much, vieux, not much. I pick up a few shrimp and a crab, and with them I make a gumbo. A gumbo is a soup. Ah, chérie, I say, a gumbo is very little for a man fatigued like me, a man tired like me. Why you not kill a chicken? She say, we only have one chicken left, and she lay an egg every day. It would be a mortal sin to kill a beast like that. Just then, I hear a out in the backyard. I throw open the door, I look out, and there is a rat de bois, and he's got our last hen by the neck. I run out in the yard, I pick up a stick, I give him a grand coup de bâton. I put his feet in the air. I say to my wife, look, the bon Dieu is bon, the good Lord is good. Now we're gonna have meat to eat. So, I take the hide over to Zebby. He the fur trader in the next camp. He gonna take that hide and he gonna sell it. He take that hide and he give me a bottle of wine for trade. My wife, she fix up a little bread. She fix up a stew. And everything come good. A little while later, I open the oven door to see how everything is going. Now maybe you not believe this, but I open that oven and there is the rat de bois. He's standing up in the pan. He had eat the potatoes. He had drink the grease. He come running out the door. He run between my wife's legs, knock over the bread, knock over the wine. He go running out through the door. He grab that hand and he go running off. And that's not all. That night, he go back into Zebby's camp. He take the hide off of the stretching board and he put it back on. Now that's something, huh? And while he was there, he ate up the stew, and he went back to Zebby, who had his hide, and he took that hide off of the stretching board, he put it back on, and he ran off.
Now, could a possum really do that? No, it's an exaggeration, but it's based on something true, which is that a possum plays dead. This is a real old-timey instrument from the mountains. It's not as well known as the banjo or guitar, but it's a real good instrument. This song is called Waterbound and I Can't Get Home. You see, if show me a tree like this. Here's a truck. A tree in the hole, make a circle, and the hole in the ground, and the green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around. Got it? We do the motions in that second part, okay? And we're going to add them on. And on that branch, and on that branch, there was a nest. There was a nest. It was a prettiest little nest. Was the prettiest little nest that you ever did see. That you ever did see. Nest on the branch, and the branch on the tree, and the tree in the hole, and the hole in the ground, and green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around, the green grass grew all around. By the way, we have some wonderful dancers here. If you live way back in the mountains where there are deep valleys and it rains, that rain collects pretty soon in those valleys. It fills them up. That happened to me once when I was out in the mountains. I was singing with some kids back in a little community center way back in the mountains, and it rained and poured, and when I went to drive out of there, I got to that valley and the water was about this deep. I couldn't get through it. I was waterbound. I couldn't get through the water. Now, I was lucky that somebody showed me a little back road up over the mountain I could get out. But if not, I'd have to just stay there overnight with one of my friends. And that's what's happening in this song. Now, the chorus goes like this. Waterbound and I can't get home. Waterbound and I can't get home. Waterbound, I can't get home down in North Carolina. Can you sing that with me?
Yeah.
Waterbound and I can't get home. Waterbound and I can't get home. Waterbound and I can't get home down in North Carolina. Little birdie, come and sing to me your song. I've a short time to be here with you, and a long time to be gone. Wanna try? Little birdie, sounds good. Come and sing to me your song. I've a short time. I've a short time to be here with you, and a long time to be gone. Well, little birdie, what makes you fly so high? It's because I've got a true little heart, and I do not fear to die. Here's your part. Little birdie, come and sing to me your song. I've a short time to be here with you, and a long time to be gone. Once upon a time, there was a very wise and kindly king named King Solomon. You've probably heard of him. At least in most of the stories, he's kind and he's wise. In this one, he's not at all, until a little bird called a hoopoo bird sets him straight. You see, his wife was coming on to having a birthday, and she had asked him as a present to build for her a palace made of the beaks of all the birds. And so he put out word that in a week's time he wanted all the birds to meet before him. He said, I've called you all here before me because my wife will be celebrating her birthday soon. Oh, that sounds great, the bird said. There'll be a party. That'll be really fun. He silenced them, he said. And for her gift, she's asked me to build a palace made of the beaks of all of the birds. There was a stunned silence. This was completely unexpected. Made of all of our beaks? What is he thinking about? How will we survive without our beaks? At that moment, into the compound flew the hoopoo bird, landing right in front of King Solomon. Your Majesty, I've been your loyal servant for many years, but I cannot so easily give up my beak to you. I will give you a proposal. I propose that I ask you 3 riddles. If you can answer all those 3 riddles, then I will do as you say. If you cannot answer any one of those riddles, then the birds keep their beaks. Well, the birds were amazed at his boldness. What chutzpah! Now, right? Challenging the great King Solomon. But Solomon admired his courage, and really the hoopoo was a favorite of King Solomon, and he was confident that he could answer any riddles that were put to him. And so he said, I accept. Well, here is the first question. Who is it that was never born and will never die? Oh, well, that's easy, said King Solomon. That would be the Creator. The Creator created the sky and the sea and the land. He created plants and animals, and birds. Birds, he said, yeah. Well, here is your second riddle. What water neither rises from the ground nor falls from the sky? Solomon thought for a moment, and he said, well, that would be a tear that's shed in sadness. As he looked out at the birds, they looked sad indeed. He felt just a tinge of sadness himself, and when he reached up to scratch below his eye, he found that his finger was a little wet. The hoopoo was becoming nervous. He had one more riddle to save the birds' beaks. Very well, he said. What is it that is so delicate that can put food in a baby's mouth, but so powerful that it can make holes in wood? King Solomon scratched his head. He wrinkled his forehead a little bit. He looked up, and then he looked down. He said, of course, he said. Well, that would be a bird's beak. A bird's beak, he said. But immediately the satisfaction of guessing that riddle passed, and he felt the cruel irony of what he had just said. Those wonderful beaks, so necessary for their survival, he was asking them to surrender. He felt filled with shame at his selfishness and his cruelty. He picked up the hoopoo bird and he looked at him. He said, my friends, I have answered the hoopoo's 3 riddles, but there is a question that I cannot answer. Why should each of you give up his beak to me? I have no right to those beaks. They are necessary for your survival. He said, my friends, I beg your forgiveness for my cruelty and my insensitivity. Please forgive me. And hoopoo, he said, I thank you for your courage and your wisdom. You are wiser than I am. And he called for the royal goldsmith, and he had him build a royal crown for the hoopoo. And he wears it to this day, and it reminds us that every living thing on the earth has something to teach us about how we live.